Hello, everyone. Welcome to the WookieCast. Today we're here with Danny Earls. Thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Julie. Hey guys, I'm Danny Earls. I've worked on Star Wars projects like mostly black, white, and red. And it's been an honor. I'm sure you'll see today chatting to Julie how much I love Star Wars. So it's a pleasure to be here, Julie. Thanks for having me.
What was your first introduction to the Star Wars franchise, perhaps first as a fan?
It's probably with my brother actually, Julie. I've got two older brothers and one younger, two sisters as well. Big old family. But he introduced me to Star Wars right in around when the prequels are coming out, you know. And then we kind of backtracked from there, probably like everyone my age. But I remember him showing me. It was like it was. I think it was like an image of Darth Maul, and I was just like blown away by it. It was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And I actually ended up, my younger brother then loved Star Wars and he got into it really. So my first proper introduction to know all the characters and stuff, I drew um me and my younger brother's bedroom wall, like this kind of big mural. It wasn't good at all, but I tried my best. My parents were cool enough to let me draw on the wall. So I drew a picture of like pretty much everything Star Wars I could fit on there. I never finished it. They painted over it after a certain amount of time, but that was pretty much our first introduction to drawing Star Wars and Star Wars in general.
Were the prequels the first films that you saw in theaters properly, I guess, then?
Yes, they were. Absolutely, yeah. I've pretty much been to like since then, pretty much. Actually, I'm trying to think what was the last one I went to. It's kind of obviously everything streams now as well, Julie, so you can kind of the stream you can keep up with things quite easily. It's probably better for me as well as an artist with like deadlines. I don't get to go to the theater as much as I'd like. I try to support films I love seeing, so I do, but it's pretty much online now. Pretty much all the stuff we like going to, you know.
Sure. Did you have any favorite characters as a kid that you particularly liked?
Yeah, Darth Maul, pretty much. I love villains. So talk about him. It's like he's just the coolest character ever. For me, it was like, you know, Star Wars in general, right? It's like it was such a cool world seeing it, even going back to the original like George Lucas films and stuff. It was like it was just such a new world. Like sci-fi in general hadn't been done before, right? So like me as a kid, I kind of got into like movies like my father and stuff loved Total Recall, and he got me into all these like sci-fi kind of dystopian films. So that's the way I pictured the future. So like I pictured the future according to the 1980s. So seeing Star Wars, it was the first movie that was ever like not sleek, not everything just crystal clear as a sci-fi film, the way everything looked worn in and kind of used. So like looking at all those characters in general, even the designs, you look back to like who designed all the movies and stuff. It was like Ralph McQuarrie stuff. It's like so cool, but like pretty much all the villains just big cloaks, big hoods. It's like, oh man, who is that? I could have done without Vader taking his helmet off. It kind of killed the mystique for me, but like yeah, it was so cool.
It's really interesting how those villains came to be with the concept art and everything. So you mentioned Ralph Kwahori. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So,
I've watched like all like the making of those movies and stuff. Like it's like
yeah.
Ian McCaig and stuff as well. Like those, it's just such a fascinating world, and that was kind of it. Obviously Lucasfilm as well, creating their like ILM and stuff. It was like seeing behind the scenes and how they made everything. Just practical effects in general. That's probably why Star Wars movies I love. Don't get me wrong, but like it's the making of them that really fascinates me. You know, like even like all the old kind of like toys and props, and I don't want to say toys, they're props, but like all the old like practical effects is like just fascinated me, and like you can understand being a kid. I would have loved. It's probably if someone had asked me about last week or in around 2 weeks ago, what would you do in a time machine? And I gave the most boring, dorky answer ever. I was like, I would have loved to have been in the cinema for the first ever Star Wars. Like just like opening that opening credit. It's just like, oh my God, what am I seeing? Like that would have been so cool having not seen something like that before. You know.
Yeah, for sure. So how did you first get involved with illustrating for the short story Return to Hoth, which was in that black, white, and red issue?
Yeah, it was true Marvel. Julia, I broke in at Marvel, doing sequentials. I'd worked with kind of DC a little bit, and then Marvel came to me, and editor Mikey Basso, who I've worked with, kind of pretty much. I'm trying to think. I've worked on Star Wars just twice, but he's been the guy that's worked. Mikey's amazing. The biggest Star Wars like I don't want to say nerd because that sounds bad, but like we're all nerds, right? The
Yeah.
biggest Star Wars like nerd ever, but like he loves Star Wars. So he like even on he basically just reached out in an email, Julie, and said, "Listen, like we like your work. Would you like to work in this story?" And I'm thinking like I was only it was my second story in comic books, and I'm like, I get to take on Darth Vader as like my second story in comics. I was like, sign me up. It was so cool. And like they'd never been to Hoth before. And even like Mikey had this little thing on a splash page, page 3. He put in this little like Kenner toy. He was like, would you mind putting this in? And I was like, mate, I love this stuff. And a couple of fans had come up in cons and stuff and said that toy was in there. I don't take any credit for that. That was Mikey that actually put it in there, the editor. But yeah, he was amazing. He asked me to work like on the Star Wars, and he knows much of a fan I am of it. So it was such an honor and a pleasure, and just a dream come true. I think it took like 20 days to work on those pages, so it was like what a dream.
So one interesting thing about this particular comic issue is that the colors, I guess the color palette was a bit limited. What's your process for trying to do projects like that?
Yeah, that was the first time, Julie, that I'd ever colored, quote unquote. It's only one color, but colored my own work. It was super cool. I've always loved those issues. Like going back like through Marvel over the years, they always do like black, white, and red books. And, like they're so cool. I love that like aesthetic anyway. So to get that as a second gig was like, oh my God, the coolest thing was trying to place the red. So like you have Darth Vader and like he's ominous, right? He's a villain. So like you're trying to think how can you play that with him like in his TIE fighter at the start. It's like you just want to make that red and cool and ominous. For print, it probably came out a little bit dark. Julia would have loved to went back in and made it a little bit lighter. On digital it looks cool, but in the print version comes a little bit muddy. But it's just basically using color as a storytelling tool. So like where can it's not it at times it's placing it where it just looks cool. Don't get me wrong, but you're trying to kind of ramp up the tension and stuff in that story by using color. So like it has to be used on every page. So can you use it sparingly sometimes, then use a big splash other times? So like when the TIE fighters come into Hoth, they use it as a background. It just looks has more of an impact. But that was super cool. Those books are amazing. They've got some such good artists on those books. I still follow them myself. Have not even working on them now. They're so cool.
Yeah, it's just interesting in the process because it is such a unique format. Normally you have the whole rainbow, I guess, to work with when coloring. And it's like
Yeah.
when you're stuck, I mean, it works for Vader. He's basically black. Like black armor,
White and
it
red.
works,
Yeah,
but
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
It was
Um
listen, it was cool for me because like I don't color my own stuff, Julie. So like as a colorist that has like knowledge, I'm working on colors now myself at the minute, but like as a colorist that has knowledge, I'm sure it's very limiting for them. But for me it was perfect. It was a perfect way in the comic books to color. But I ink my own stuff anyway, so I was just adding an extra layer on top of that. But the fun of trying to make its way into the storytelling really kind of made it super fun on top of all that.
that's a good way to look at it. Have you worked on any other projects where you've colored your work since this
I
one?
worked on another cover, Mark Miller's cover. It was a Nemesis cover I worked on pretty soon after that. Actually, I colored it again. It's one of those. Really, I wish I had it back. It's like, oh, I didn't have the knowledge I do now. But listen, that's kind of published comic books.
Of
That's
course.
artwork. You're always going to have that. Like, oh, I wish I could get it back. Like, I'm happy with it, but I wish I changed it now. And then I done it that the Dark Mall cover. I done I colored that one, but that's again black, white, and red. I'll be pretty much in the next say 6 months to a year coloring my own covers. I'm working on and getting to get to a place to color my own covers. So that's kind of going to free me up to again work on storytelling within the cover and kind of add that to my own arsenal.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, this particular story introduced some new subjects, I would say. How do I pronounce this? Dr. Lamar, and her Zarakan. Um,
Yeah.
I would love if you could expound a bit on your favorite parts of illustrating those.
Yeah, well, for me it was Vader, right? It was Vader just going into Hot. That was kind of pretty much once that came in, Julie, that book. So I didn't do the whole book, right? It was only 12 pages at the back of the book. So each artist has their own like segment in it. So I think it's four artists on 12 pages.
Yeah.
So yeah, so for me it was pretty much just when I seen Vader, everything else just went out the window. It was like, right, where can I make him the coolest, right? So I understand there's different parts in it, but like pretty much it was like the Wampus. That was the Wampus, and that's always the biggest part to try figure out. And like kind of how to kind of juxtapose like Vader against them. But like as opposed to expanding those characters, it's all you want to keep it in kind of indigenous to the Star Wars lore, right? Like you want to keep those characters looking like they're part of Star Wars. I know how much the fan base loves Star Wars. I know how passionate they are. I wouldn't have half the knowledge that people come to me at Comic Cons about Star Wars, and sometimes I get like tripped up. It's like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, but teach me. I want them to like teach me what's going on in Star Wars. But as kind of expand on it, you're just trying to keep within that lore, make it feel Star Wars. That's the biggest thing I want to do with that book. Is like, can I make this feel like a Star Wars universe, like a Star Wars book, and kind of keep that authenticity of what's happened previous to me being on the book?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, how does Star Wars, you think, compare with some of your other works?
Yeah, it's I've worked on like the Hulk mainly at Marvel.
Mm,
The thing that differs like the most is like Luke. So Star Wars have to get approval from Lucasfilm
mm.
before everything goes out. So that's just an extra step. It's not good or bad. It's not a positive or a negative. I suppose the positive is if Lucasfilm like your stuff, it means you're doing something right, right? But like it adds a tiny bit more, just another level to kind of the work getting published. So that's the biggest way it differs, because there's a page in that where Vader lands and he goes into like the base, and there's a couple of pages where I show his uniform, and I get the buttons I think wrong, and I was trying to be so diligent with this. I had like Vader plastered up behind my drafting board, and I tried to get it so like, oh, this is the way it is, and I still got it wrong, and they were like, hey, that's wrong, and I was like, Jesus, these guys are good at their job. So like that's the biggest one where it was like that's the biggest difference because with Marvel and the Hulk, you pretty much have carte blanche to do anything you want. Once the Hulk looks similar to what the Hulk looks like, you can pretty much do anything. There's not really any editorial notes that come in that are drastic, but there's a couple of things in there with like the story that they would come back on.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I guess they wouldn't want someone's lightsaber to be the wrong color, right? That would cause
Yeah,
problems.
and that's like I always think of it like I never get mad at those notes because it's like I can only imagine. Imagine, I'm sure, Julie, I'm sure your knowledge of Star Wars is very deep, right? Because this is what you do. Like this is your like your podcast and stuff, your interview. But like, imagine being those guys having to keep track of everything. Imagine there's like this miscellaneous character in the background, and they have to be like, "Hey, does that guy look right?" And I'm just like, "Oh my god!" So when they give me a note, I'm always just like, "Yeah, no problem, my fault. I'll change it." I don't ever go back and try because like they know a lot more than me, so I'm pretty much learning on the job as I go.
Oh, for sure. There's some people that are really good at that. I do less image work, but there's some of my friends that are absolutely amazing at it. They can notice anything. So,
Yeah, and that's like when you go to Comic Cons, it's like when I'm drawn here in Ireland, right? So I'm in Wicklow Town. I don't know anyone around here that's mad about Star Wars, but then when you go to like New York Comic Con and someone comes up and like, you got that wrong, it's like, oh, it's like you don't know that person's gonna see that, right? But it's like, Jesus Christ, I can't believe you even caught that. But that's why comics and pop culture is so amazing because people are so passionate. I love that people come up and tell me that stuff. Like it's never a negative thing. They're always so sweet about it and stuff. And there's not a ton I would have got wrong anyway, but they're like it's cool. People are passionate. That's what we want in the world, right? We want passionate people like about what they're passionate about, right?
for sure. Was there anything interesting? This was such a I it was shorter than a regular issue, if I'm correct, Return to Hoth.
Yes, it
So
was 12
was
pages, I think.
how was it like trying to kind of pack that all in?
Yeah, that's like I worked with Frank Thierry, who's the writer. Excuse me, Frank is the man. He's so cool. He gave me a script that was like so fun to draw. That was just like he is the man. Frank is like, and basically he gave me a story that was 12 pages that could work in that kind of time frame. I suppose how it differs, you can probably put more effort, not effort, that's the wrong word, more time into pages because it's a 12-page story. I had a little bit more time on the pages to do them as well. The editors gave me a little bit more time. So that was super cool to be able to do that. But it's just, I suppose, you feel a little bit fresher for every page, Julie. I suppose that's the best way I could put it. Because on a 20-page comic, it gets hard and it gets long days. So when you in the middle of that comic, sorry, at the end of that comic would have been the middle of a 20-page comic. So you still have that energy to keep the enthusiasm as best you can while you're working. So it's a fun format though. I've done a lot of short stories for Marvel, Marvel and DC. So it's a super fun format to work in because you're in and out. It's a one shot story, right? There's not a ton of continuity you have to kind of worry about. You can just make the thing look as cool as possible. Like you're not going to go back to Hoth. You're not going to visit the TIE fighter again. So you can kind of make it uniquely yours as well. So it's a super fun format to work in.
Yeah, for sure. I know we have a lot of fans of the black, white, and red ones.
Yeah.
Because they haven't done a lot of them for Star Wars. I feel like they've done them for
Hmm.
other franchises more
Yeah.
first, and then now they're slowly creeping into Star Wars, which is great.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's like, it's perfect for it with the lightsabers and stuff. It's a perfect world to deal for, right?
True, until it's black, white, and red, and the character doesn't have a red lightsaber.
Yeah. Black, white, and green or something. Yeah. Exactly.
Um, if you could illustrate for another character in Star Wars in the future, who would you like to do an
I'm
entry
gonna
on?
be so boring, Julie, and just say Darth Maul. Do you know, like the guys came to me, the editors, and they got me to do a cover for Darth Maul, and I'm like, there's a couple of characters that I hold kind of dear to my heart in pop culture, and like Darth Maul is right up there. It's more so because of the design of him. He is such a cool design and what it meant to me as a kid. When I seen him as a kid, I was like, this dude has horns on his head and he's black, white, and red. I mean, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. So when they done that short, the black, white, and red for Darth Maul, I was like, oh, I wish I had time to do that. Like, I'm trying to think. Boba Fett's amazing. I adore Boba Fett. His design is so cool. Do you know what? Like even like Luke, like classic Luke. You see some of the comics of old, like Ryan Suck is one of his pages for Star Wars. It might have been a cover, but it looks like an inside an interior panel. He draws a beautiful kind of Luke kind of collage scene. It's like oh, it's beautiful. So to draw those um like iconic characters. That's amazing. Like just working in that world, Julie, is amazing. I suppose like that Darth Maul is the answer, but working in Star Wars is such an honor and a privilege anyway. To get to work in any character that is kind of just cool, you know.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing that you've done within the Star Wars franchise thus far is the Battle of Jakku variant cover. I'd love if you
Oh
could
my
talk a
God,
bit about your
I
favorite
forgot
part
all
of that.
about that. Yeah, wow, I was trying to, I knew I'd done three things. Thanks for reminding me of that, Julie. Yeah, I knew I'd done three. It was like, I know I have another cover. Yeah, that was Mikey as well. That was one of the funnest covers ever. That's so, do you know what? I sat here while I was talking all the time and I was like, I know I've worked on something else for Star Wars, but it wasn't black, white, and red, so it slipped past me. Yeah, that was Mikey coming in again. He asked me to do so. It's a battle of Jakku, right? So it's like
Mm.
how it's a big battle. How intense can you make it? So I gave them loads of layouts, like I always do, and loads of options to pick from. And I really wanted to play with like the scale of an AT-AT, right? At with however you call it. Like I wanted to play with that scale, and like those things are just the coolest designs ever. Anyway, so like I wanted to like really put. I had the characters a lot smaller on it actually. But they kind of it's a Star Wars cover, so they want to kind of have it impactful as well. But I had it like really low under the ad, and they said, "Can we change it a little bit?" So I changed it. But like that action packed, I wanted to make that. Do you know when you just watch a Star Wars film, it's unmistakable. You just see like, oh, if there's like bullets flying towards you or lightsabers, you just know it's Star Wars. And I wanted to make it feel authentically Star Wars, you know. And like it was, I think, D. Cuniff, another Irish guy, colored that, and I think he made it look really authentically Star Wars. So I'll give him props to that. Like he made my cover look better than it was. So it was a really really fun cover. That.
I guess that's something interesting about Star Wars comics. If they didn't have the Star Wars logo, would you still be able to tell that it's a Star Wars comic? And that's, I understand it from that perspective. Because you probably would be
Yeah,
able to tell because of the lightsaber and you would be able
I
to
mean,
tell even if it didn't have the Star Wars logo on top.
yeah, I mean I suppose that's like iconography, is it? Like look at Batman or Superman. You can recognize their silhouette anywhere in the world. Anyone in the world can recognize their silhouette anywhere in the world, you know. So I think Star Wars, yeah. If I would like to think if I put my Jakku piece in front of someone and they didn't know a Star Wars, I'd be like, "Right, you've never seen a TV in your life." You'd like to think that they would kind of recognize. I'd be like, "Hey, I know that's something to do with space, and I've kind of seen that film." So I would like to think so. Yeah, I think that's why it's lasted so long in pop culture because it's so iconic. Not my
Yeah.
cover, by the way. To be clear on that, not my
Just
cover.
Star
I mean
Wars.
Star Wars in general. Yeah.
I mean, every line of the prequels is basically a meme, right? So it's
Yeah.
definitely it's in pop culture forever.
That's especially with phones now. It's like, poor George Lucas. And well, it's good for them for publicity, but it's also like, yeah, they've memed everything, right?
Yeah, for sure. If people would like to keep up with you and your future work, what social media platforms can they find you on?
Yeah, I'm pretty much on everything. Julie, it's Blue Sky, Twitter, and Instagram, or X, they call it now, right? It's Danny Earls 16. So Danny Earls 16. Have a big announcement coming soon-ish. I just started my new project. I can't even say where it's at, but that's huge. So that's going to be. It's not in the Star Wars universe, but that's going to be starting soon. Yeah. So I'm always on Instagram and stuff, Julie, and Twitter. I'm always updating people on stories and kind of posts and pages. So if anyone has any questions ever, I always like kind of when I do these things, people reaching out about like questions or anything. Just reach out to me. If I don't get back, I promise I will, or I might need a little bit of a second reminder to get back. But I always try to get back to like fans of pop culture because we're all in this together. It's an amazing world, comic books and pop culture. So if anyone wants to reach out, just give me a shout. I'm on Danny Earl 16 and everything.
Thank you so much for sitting down with us today. It was a pleasure. Wikipedia appreciates everything that you Star Wars creators do.